Thanks very much. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Bridgeman, and I'm a director with Downey Planning and Architecture, as is my colleague Brian Bulger. So this morning we will be talking to you about the challenges of the development process from the very beginning of the project right through to the final handover of the development, particularly demonstrating, I suppose, to you the time scale of the overall process and how lengthy it can actually be. So before I get started, I just want to give a brief introduction to Downey Planning and Architecture and the work that we do. So we're a multidisciplinary practice of chartered town planners, architects and project managers. We specialise in taking, I suppose, a project or a greenfield site from its very infancy, such as maybe rezoning proposals and feasibility assessments, all the way through to planning, procurement and on-site construction. So I suppose let's just move on to the presentation. So this morning's presentation will be broken up into three main themes or areas. We have the pre-application stage, the planning application process, and finally Brian will be taking us through the post-planning side of things and on-site construction. So I'll be using this morning a case study for the purposes of today's presentation. So the site that I'll be using is a site on Chapel Road in Conceely, the residential development known as Cooper's Wood. So it's Conceely there, it's to the east of Dublin Airport and the M1 and to the west of Portmarnock and Malahide. So it's a residential scheme consisting of 38 dwellings. So Downey Planning were involved from the very beginning, right back, would you believe, to 2003. So I'll just take you through to where we're at the moment. We're at 2016 and we're just about to hand over keys to some of the units. So I suppose we were involved in the very rezoning of the site through the development plan process. Following on from that, then the local area plan process, the feasibility stage, planning application stage, and then on-site construction. So that's just an image of it there in its very early stages, greenfield site. So I'm now going to take you through, I suppose, very beginning, the development plan stage, the rezoning process. Just to bear in mind, I suppose, development plans are a statutory document for the county. They set out for over the next 6 years the development and planning policies and objectives that the council have for their county. If I just give you a brief kind of synopsis of the overall process, you've got the initial public consultation stage where the pre-draft goes out on display and the issue papers and all that, and then it goes through then to the preparation of the draft plan. Councillors then consider your draft plan, preparation of the draft for public consultation. It goes out then to the community at the draft stage where you've got 10 weeks to make a submission. So that's what we did. We put in the submission. We also engaged with councillors and it eventually came through on stage 3 by way of motions to get it onto the plan. So just moving on then from that, to give you an indication, I suppose, within the Dublin area, development plans of the 4 local authorities are all under review at the moment or have been recently adopted. So I suppose this process only comes around every 6 years, so it's something that's very crucial when you're considering how a development plan concerns your lands and the future development of your lands or your site or your buildings or what have you. So it's just something to bear in mind that they're all under review at the moment. So I suppose it's a crucial time. So just taking it back then to the actual case study itself, the lands were successfully rezoned from a greenfield site to a rural village in Conceely within the Fingal development plan back in 2005. So that was overall was about a 2-year process to get it through on the development plan. So whilst we had the lands then rezoned, it was a requirement of that designation that it was then subject to the preparation of a local area plan. So I'm just going to take you through briefly the local area plan. Again, the time scale on that, you're looking at about 39 weeks approximately for the preparation of that. Very similar again with the development plan process, your pre-draft consultation, your public display periods, your manager's reports, again, your opportunities to make submissions on that, and again, lobbying your councillors by way of motions, etc. So I suppose, again, just something to bear in mind, I suppose, with local area plans, we've come across a number of cases where clients haven't been aware that a local area plan is an actual requirement with a plan. So any planning applications will be deemed premature until a local area plan is in place for a site. So we've come across that a few times where it has delayed us. We've had to go back to the local area plan stage to ensure that it's the whole process has gone through formally before we can then actually go through the feasibility and the planning application stage with the council. So it's just something to bear in mind or factor in when you're actually purchasing a site, that all these items are lined up. So then again, I suppose that's just the site there on Chapel Road. It was rezoned successfully within the local area plans for residential development. So I suppose once we've all that aspect of the kind of, I suppose, the pre-application aligned, we now move on to the feasibility stage and the preparation of an application. So I suppose this involves undertaking full kind of planning due diligence of the site, checking previous planning applications, all that type of thing, and then developing, I suppose, your sketch proposals, consulting with the client and preparing the sketches which you feel will meet, I suppose, not only your client's requirements but also that of the council's. I suppose that's very much an important aspect of it. You're kind of striking a balance really between what the client wants and the council. So again, prepare the sketch proposals, go through the pre-planning consultation stage. Now, this tends to vary quite a bit from council to council. We've had cases with some local authorities where they'll meet you within a couple of weeks. Others you could be chasing for a few months to actually secure a pre-planning meeting. Due to maybe lack of resources, the council may just decide to facilitate a pre-planning meeting by way of email or telephone conversation, which is kind of a bit frustrating, I suppose, from a client perspective. They want to formally meet with the council, rather than it just being logged by an email or phone call. So they're just kind of some of the obstacles along the way. Again, timing of that, you could be waiting 2-3 months really for a meeting with the council. Sometimes then as well, I suppose they may ask you to revise the proposal, so that again may require further pre-planning meeting, and again the timeline on that, you could be waiting another few weeks for that. Just one other thing as well, I suppose, to bear in mind is now before you lodge an application for a residential scheme, you are required, as per the recent planning bills, it's now a requirement to formally engage with the Housing Department regarding your Part 5 obligations prior to actually preparation and lodgement of your planning application. So it's just something to factor in, that you actually have to formally engage with them now before, if before it wasn't necessarily the case, you'd lodge your application and you say, look, upon grant of planning permission, we'll discuss it with the Housing Department and formally prepare a Part 5 agreement. So this again can delay the process, as some local authorities as well are insisting on a detailed breakdown of construction costs, something which might be very difficult to produce at this time, noting that your construction may be a couple of years away. So again, that's something that a client may not have considered at the very early stages of a project, but it's just something to bear in mind. So another aspect, I suppose, of preparing a planning application is your engagement with your external consultants. And that again is throughout the process. They'd be responsible as well for your pre-planning with the various internal departments of your council. So roads, water drainage, parks, etc. So just to give you an idea, your surveyors, your engineers, landscape architects, conservation ecologists, acoustic consultants, your archaeologists, 3D modelers and that. So I suppose as planners and architects, we often take on the role of project managers. So it's trying to get your design team coordination of that to ensure that we successfully deliver on a project. Another factor to consider is that some applications, and it can be at the discretion of the planning authority, that they may ask you to prepare an EIS, which is an environmental impact statement. So again, it's extensive engagement with external consultants to get that over the line. Your AA screenings then with your habitat directive, that's another thing that has to be considered. Your Natura 2000 sites, will your actual development have an impact or a perceived impact on your special protection areas or your areas of kind of scenic preservation? Again, flood risk assessments and that are something just again that can delay the process. So I suppose then finally you're kind of ready to prepare your planning application and go ahead and lodge. So just to give you a breakdown really of the planning application process, it's overall 8 weeks upon lodgement to get a decision from the council. During that, there's a 5-week window for third parties and observations to make comment on your application. Following that then, at the 3 weeks from that, your council will give you a decision whether they want to grant, refuse, or indeed request additional information. Now, your additional information requests can be quite lengthy. I suppose if you don't do the background work like I've gone through there, you could get a lengthy AI request from your council. You've 6 months, again, I suppose, to prepare that and submit that to the council. So again, that's reiterating, I suppose, the timescales and the challenges of getting your actual grant for your development. So just another factor to be mindful of. Once you get your grant, then I suppose just bear in mind on this, the AIs, you can get clarification of AI, which is again another time delay. Your appeals then, if you were to appeal the decision yourself as a first party or indeed as a third party, you have 4 weeks to do that. And then it's then with the board to determine whether they want to grant or refuse the application, your development. So they're not bound by it, but they have a time scale of 18 weeks to make their decision. But in the past, they haven't been great in doing that. We've had some cases where applications have been with the board for about a year or more. But in more recent times, they are pushing applications through. So we are seeing decisions within around the 18, 19-week period, which is great. So I suppose that's kind of it then. Just to kind of give you a brief synopsis there, just when you actually go through the pre-planning consultation stage and all that, you're looking at about 70 weeks, give or take, to get it right through from your sketch proposals through to the board's decision. So it's just something to be mindful of, that it is obviously a very lengthy process, and that actually doesn't even factor in your development plan stage for submissions or local area plans. So it's quite a considerable period. The case study with Cooper's Wood, we were looking at from the very initial greenfield site, 2003, we're now through to 2016, and we're handing over the final keys, I suppose, for those residential units in Concealy. So it's just something to factor in. You can be waiting 10 to 12 years. It's just showing you, I suppose, the delay in terms of getting development on the ground and to the client at the end of the day.